Disclaimer. All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program.
You know why you're here, Mr. Wordsworth?
Yes, sir.
I'd ask you to speak up a little, if you will.
Yes, sir. I know why I am here.
You've been under investigation, Mr. Wordsworth, for the mandatory period of 1 year and 11 months. You're found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Your occupation, Mr.
A
Wordsworth?
radio talk show host.
What?
A radio talk show host, sir.
I'm told you've had counsel and been given orientation, Mr. Wordsworth, but I'm still not sure in my own mind that you understand the purpose of this hearing. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete. This finding carries with it serious implications. Do you understand that, Mr. Wordsworth? Now I ask you again, your occupation?
I am a radio talk show host. That is my occupation, my profession. If you people choose to call that obsolete...
Request clarification of the term? Yes, the term. Mr. Wordsworth, you people, you make reference to the state?
I make reference to the state.
And you persist in declaring your occupation, correct?
That is correct.
A minister. A minister would tell us that his function is that of preaching the word of God. And of course it follows that since the state has proven that there is no God, that would make the function of a minister somewhat academic as well.
There is a God.
You are in error, Mr. Wordsworth. There is no God. The state has proven that there is no God.
You cannot erase God with an edict.
You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth. You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought out loud, that thought exists, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
Delusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Delusions, the Bible, poetry, essays of all kinds, all of it an opiate to make you think you have a strength when you have no strength at all. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream, and the state has no use for your kind.
Yeah? Well, we're gonna have to do something about that. This is RiverWestRadio.com, community-supported radio streaming live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm your host. My name is Michael Wordsworth, and welcome to Breaking Down the News, the show that presents the news highlights of the week, but with a twist. Breaking Down the News is more concerned in bringing you information that wasn't covered on the front pages. Headlines you don't want to miss, because not listening could be dangerous to your freedom, liberty, and health.
And good afternoon. It is Friday, July 27, 2012. I am Michael Wordsworth with Wordsworth Listening To. We're very excited here at River West Radio to bring you coverage of the 24K bike race. 24-hour bike race that is going to start apparently tonight, going all the way through till tomorrow. For I guess that's the whole point, 24 hours, wherein you will be able to receive live coverage right here at River West Radio. A lot of us are going to be volunteering extra duty time here. We got callers on the street, at the finish line, at the starting line, at various points throughout the race to give you that in-depth coverage and the on-the-spot reports. Very exciting stuff. I know a lot of people are sitting up in front of the co-op today. Normally I bike through there, and lo and behold, there was just a virtual banquet table set up right in the middle of the street. It was kind of interesting to see, actually. We got a call. I don't think it's for us, but you know what? Just for giggles, we're going to take that call. Hang on. And good afternoon. You're live on the air.
Hello?
Yes.
I'm going to dial the wrong number. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's quite all right. Take care. I just had to take that call. Who knows? I mean, it could have been somebody actually calling in for the show or reporting something on the bike race. We are getting set up here. River West Video has put a speaker out front. Oh, my goodness. Well, hang on. Hello? Yes, I'm sorry. You must have the wrong number. The what? Well, that's what you get when you have live phone lines open. What are you going to do, right? In any case, River West Video has put a speaker outside the front door to cover more area here on the sidewalk. Of course, Fuel Cafe's next door, and that's going to be a great viewing spot. I'm sure those tables will be taken up. Got a big banner hanging across here on Center Street. Quite lovely, actually. All in all, it looks like it's going to be quite an event. I know the bikers are getting all ready, getting their extra carbohydrates in them. Hopefully, I'm going to be reminding people, drink water. I'm sure everybody's going to be saying that, but we're in the middle of a hot summer here in Milwaukee, and it's not just water. You need your salt levels, too. Keep that salt intake up. Electrolytes. Actually, better than Gatorade, you want my 2 cents? I say get coconut water. Coconut water is available at Clark Foods and Co-op right here in the area. One on Fratney and Clark and one on Bremen and Clark. I'm just saying, this is a good thing to pick up. Coconut water rehydrates you better than Gatorade. A lot more healthy, has no sugar, no dyes. Very good, healthy stuff. A little pricey, but you got to weigh it. You know, the cost for what you get, you actually get hydrated. And in this bike race, water in itself isn't always enough. All right, it is Friday, July 27th. When I come back, we're going to be reading about prescription drugs, comparing them to the recent homicidal shootings. Let me ask you this before we cut to commercial here. What do you think kills more people in America? Homicidal shootings or prescription drugs? Well, I'll give you the answer when we come back. I'm Michael Wordsworth with Wordsworth Listening to You. Thank you for tuning in today. It's going to be a good show.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
And now it is time to make light of the issues.
War criminals. I mean, we used to hunt down war criminals, put them on trial, and have them executed. Today, you have so many war criminals running around today. You've got Kissinger, George Bush, Barack Obama. All these guys should be put on trial. George Bush can't even go to Switzerland anymore. I'm telling you, they wanted to arrest him. But in America, it's just, yeah. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Are you tired of commercials always telling you that you're tired? When you know you're tired because you wake up early and go to bed late, and every moment in between is spent trying to figure out how you're going to make the next dollar. Well, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are walking around in a sleep-deprived, zombie-like state, amplified by psych meds and pharmaceuticals found in their drinking water. So just be glad you're not one of them, unless you are, in which case I'm sorry you had to hear this. But wait, there's more. If we keep at this current pace, we will surely lose our democratic republic and soon be standing in food lines for the poisonous rations the new totalitarian government will hand out. Don't delay, get involved, get informed.
And now, live from River West Radio, the man with Wordsworth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth.
Welcome back. Going to kick off the show right away with the comparison between what do you think kills more Americans, homicidal shootings or prescription drugs? If you said prescription drugs, you were right. And if you said homicidal shootings, you were wrong. Well, in the aftermath of the Aurora, Colorado Batman movie theater shooting, President Obama chimed in on the gun control debate yesterday, saying, "Every day, the number of young people we lose to violence is about the same as the number of people we lost in that movie theater. For every Columbine and Virginia Tech, there are dozens gunned down on the streets of Chicago or Atlanta." Well, what he didn't say, however, is that every day 290 people are killed by the FDA-approved prescription drugs that are handed out all over our pharmacies across America. And that's the conservative number published by the Journal of the American Medical Association. As no one seems to believe these numbers are real, I'll quote the source. The source is the Journal of the American Medical Association. I mean, come on, that's pretty much as high as it gets, isn't it? Is there a greater medical authority here in America other than the AMA? I don't think so. The study was authored by Dr. Barbara Starfield, MD, MPH, of the Johns Hopkins School of Hygiene and Public Health. Very credible sources. And they're saying that that study, which is 12 years old, and drug deaths have risen considerably since then. I mean, actually, these figures are actually old. The documents reveal 106,000 deaths per year from the adverse effects of FDA-approved prescription medications. To reach this number from outbreaks of violent shootings, okay, I mean, to get anywhere close to the number of people killed by homicidal maniacs per year, you'd have to see an Aurora, Colorado Batman movie massacre take place every hour of every day, 365 days a year. That's right. That's right. And I'm saying, let's compare the coverage. We went all bat wing crazy over the massacre that occurred in the movie theater, didn't we? Oh my God! That happened once, and now it's over. And when's the last time we had a homicidal maniac? I don't know. It's been months now. It's getting more infrequent. But let me point out that prescription drugs approved by the FDA kill 106,000 plus people a year. To compare the two issues, you would need to have a Batman movie massacre take place every hour, every day for 365 days a year. Could you imagine if the news was reporting every hour on the hour that the amount of people killed in the Batman movie were actually killed by prescription drugs? It wouldn't take long. I mean, maybe 72 hours after 3 days of listening to the prescription drug deaths on air, on your news, on your radio, on your internet, in your news articles. Eventually you'd be like, my God, we got to do something about prescription drug deaths. If a massacre of people using slugs of lead is bad, why is a massacre of people using deadly chemicals perfectly acceptable? We got to ask this. I'll tell you why. Because the news doesn't pump out the hype. I mean, sure, it was a tragedy that these people were killed in the Batman movie theater. Indeed, it was a tragedy. But now we're finding out there's a lot of questions about that shooting. They always want to make it that it was a lone gunman. Nobody else had anything to do with it. And yet somehow this guy got a hold of $6,000 worth of weaponry, including armor, guns, and ammo. There's this guy that doesn't look like he makes much money. I don't even know where he would get so much money. Second, he got a phone call, and instead of taking the phone call out in the lobby like most people do, local news sources in Colorado reported that this gentleman went to the exit door. I don't know. I'd provide greater coverage on that issue, except a lot of people are doing a really good job at this point, and it's not necessary. What I'd like to point out today is that, if you're freaked out about that, why aren't you freaked out about pharmaceutical deaths in this country? It's a good question. Well, I'm Michael Wordsworth. We're going to take a little break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk some more on this subject. If you have anything to add, please feel free to call in at 414-935-2951. Peace out. Be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. The kitchen is the heart of the home, but at Monsanto, we're a megalithic agricultural group attempting to destroy farmers all across your country. We bring you horrible foods that attack your stomach lining, DNA, give you kidney and liver failure. Monsanto, bringing Franken foods to your family at home. Don't you just hate us? Say no to GMO.
When you're out on the road, you want to know them tires are touching the pavement. You want rubber to concrete. When you're out there, you want to drive knowing that you're in control of the wheel. But what about your government? Don't you think your government should have its reality check and the rubber hit the pavement? What's going to put the brakes on the rampant fiscal spending, budget problems? It's not the voter, it's not the constituents, it won't be the leaders. The problem ain't the leaders, it's the followers. Get behind the wheel, America. The TSA has consistently made the news with bad reports about its moral conduct, questionable employees, civil rights violations, everything from workers stealing cash out of travelers' luggage to trafficking drugs through airport security gates. Congresswoman Blackburn recently brought to the news media an awareness of the TSA's hiring of known child molesters and child porn collectors. My question is, why are we putting up with this? Why have we become so tolerant of being peasant slaves that we will acquiesce to anything? I've come to the DFW International Airport outside Dallas, Texas, to ask some questions of ordinary passengers and to interview the TSA workers themselves. Let's go in and see what they have to say.
I don't like what I have to put up with every time I fly.
Ted Wilsonberg travels by plane frequently and has to get groped on a regular basis. But does he have to put up with this?
No. Hell no. I'd keep these guys out of here if I could.
So you don't think that we need to be molested in the interest of national security?
No. Think about it. A police officer can't just come up and put their hands in your crotch. But these guys feel me up every time I pass through these gates.
But why do you put up with it?
I have to do this. My job depends that I fly 3 to 4 times a week. I have a family, you know?
The TSA stands for total suckasses when it comes to trampling on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. How do they get away with it? I asked the director of security here at the airport at Dallas-Fort Worth. Yeah, well, when you pass through them doors, them front doors of this airport, you're no longer in America, boy. You're now in international territory bound by international law. And that's the great secret. The Constitution of the United States does not apply in its airports. Since September 11th, 2001, the Bill of Rights has been circumvented because of the threat of terrorism, when in actuality, you're more likely to die from a bee sting or be struck by lightning than actually be affected by terrorists.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
And now, live from River West Radio, the man with words worth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth.
Okay, thank you. We are back. We're back talking about prescription drug deaths occurring in America versus homicidal maniacs. Great topic for today's show, isn't it? A medical massacre that dwarfs the number of deaths from shootings. Prescription drugs continues to be a problem, killing roughly just over 106,000 people a year. That's added up, it's over 1 million people every decade die from prescription drugs. No one in Washington talks about prescription drug deaths. There are no sobbing victims shown on the evening news. Yet this chemical massacre happens quietly behind closed doors daily. Yet to achieve this level of mass death in the world of plane crashes, for example, you'd have to see a jumbo jetliner crashing into the ground once a day, every day of the year. Again, could you imagine if the news reported every day, 365 days a year, that a jumbo jetliner crashed into the ground, killing, all the passengers on board? Well, that would be the equivalent of prescription deaths that occur. And again, if we reported on these things, of course, who would not be happy about this? Well, GlaxoSmithKline, Merck Pharmaceuticals, Pfizer, these guys don't want you to hear this information that their drugs are killing people. I'm sure their attitude is, well, you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, don't you? What a horrible attitude when it comes to the lives of our loved ones, friends, and family. Again, it's all about being a conscientious consumer. As a conscientious consumer, you basically dictate what the corporations give you. Don't ever forget the fact that we hold the power in our pocketbooks. It's our hard-earned money. We can vote with our dollars. We can choose not to support these drug giants that are, quite frankly, irresponsible. But when it comes to mass death, through prescription drugs, that's only the beginning. Modern science in itself, where greed-driven doctors are routinely bribed by the drug giants and thereby make the Joker James Holmes look like a Boy Scout by comparison. I mean, seriously, this guy, he went in and he killed how many people? 12 people, 70 injured. Well, compared to the prescription drug companies, he's an amateur. He doesn't even qualify in terms of deaths per day like these guys do. Just one company, for example, GlaxoSmithKline, had a bribery network of 49,000 doctors who received financial kickbacks to prescribe more Glaxo pharmaceuticals to patients. According to the report by Death by Medicine, which is a report done by Doctors Gary Null and Carolyn Dean, Martin Feldman, Deborah Rossio, and Doria Smith, the medical establishment, get this, the medical establishment kills 783,936 people in the United States every year. There you go. Boom. That's right. This report, known as Death by Medicine, actual doctors were curious, hey, how many people are dying from malpractice, unnecessary surgical procedures, incorrect prescriptions of drugs, incorrect usage of prescriptions, etc., staph infections, so on and so forth. Well, the medical establishment ends up killing 783,936,000 people in the United States every year. Those deaths include, dig this, 106,000 deaths from Americans killed from drug side effects right off the bat. Now, look, I'm not making these numbers up. These are actually according to the doctors and the previous figures about 106,000 people per year dying from prescription drugs. That was provided to you by the American Medical Association. So, my God, please do not accuse me of making things up here. I'm sourcing the American Medical Association. Thank you. Okay, and I'm doing it only. What am I? I'm like the Paul Revere. No, I don't know if that's the great example. Maybe like a gopher sitting out in the field, right? You know how gophers watch out for predators coming along, and they see a predator and they warn the other gophers. I'm just a fellow gopher, fellow mammal, seeing these figures, saying to myself, look, this isn't getting reported on. That's why Breaking Down the News must report this. And I'm saying, look, there's a concern here, people. If we're all concerned about psychotic mass murders, we should be 1,000 times more concerned about prescription deaths from pharmaceuticals. So, 106,000 Americans killed from drug side effects. 115,000 Americans killed from bed sores. My goodness. I mean, can you believe that? Bed sores. 98,000 Americans killed from medical error. 88,000 Americans killed from infections. 32,000 Americans killed from surgery. And 37,000 Americans killed from unnecessary procedures, and so on. And again, the link from this, if you really want to go get it, is http://www.ncbi.gov lef.org/magazine/March 2004/March 2004_death_02.htm. All right, well, you are 6,200% more likely to be killed by your doctor than a mass homicidal maniac. That's today's topic. We're starting off the show with isn't it just a cheerful topic? It really is. No, but I mean, I'm making light of it because you almost have to. There's no need. It's a serious situation, but I figure if I present this information and we have a good little chuckle about it, maybe you'll receive it better. I mean, it'd be a lot easier than me going, my God, we're all gonna die. Yeah, we're all going to die at some point. The trick is to try to enjoy your life before that happens. Hopefully you have a nice family. If you're lucky, you'll grow old and be comfortable. I'm telling you. Well, according to the CDC's numbers, that's the Center for Disease Control, from 2007, they report that the total number of homicide shooting deaths in the United States a year is roughly 12,600 deaths. Actually, my God, that's a huge number. I mean, it really is. Like 12,600 people die a year from homicidal murders. I guess, though, right? That might not include all the popular ones like the Virginia Tech shooting or the Batman movie massacre. But that is a heck of a lot of people dying from murders. My goodness. And I guess that's just homicide shooting deaths in the United States. So I guess that could be a bank robbery, a mad husband, a vendetta, anything. And that data came from the National Vital Statistics reports for the Center of Disease Control, 58/19.11, if you actually want to know the document. Okay, well, anyhow, whereas 12,600 deaths by homicidal murder is a large number, that doesn't compare to the 106,000 plus deaths we're experiencing this year from prescription drugs. And this means that your risk of being killed by your doctor is 62 times higher than the risk of being killed by a shooter. You can break it down into percentage, I guess. That's 6,200%. Numbers are numbers, but I mean, I'll take 62 times higher of being killed by a doctor than you would by a homicidal maniac. I don't know if that makes me any, I don't know if there's great comfort in that, I mean, it seems that before we even think about the issue of gun control, we need a national debate on doctor control. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of the media, and I guess you'd have to say left-wing proponents of gun control. I don't know if there's been any right-wing proponents of gun control. Typically, that's not a popular topic on the right-wing side, but the right and the left are kind of melded together with all the neoliberal stuff, or neoconservatives. Anything with they should just have the neo party. That's right. You don't even need to be a liberal or a conservative anymore. You just need to be a neo-fascist, and then there you go. Put them all in there. Well, the media's wasted no time talking about gun control, as if there is gun control in this country, okay? Just even to have a conceal and carry, you got to register. You got to register your guns when you buy them. You can obtain them illegally, but most of the guns that are obtained illegally were basically sold by the government. That's right. This year, Fast and Furious, actually it was back in 2011, sorry, under Eric Holder, Attorney General, our own Attorney General, giving illegal guns to drug dealers. And boy, I wish I had the numbers of how many deaths that came up, way more than the Batman massacre. I mean, it kind of like 100 times more deaths from that. I forgot how many people actually, including law enforcement agents, died from the guns that our government gave and or sold under the guise of some sort of gun tracking program. The weird thing is that they did not put any tracking devices on the guns, and apparently the only way they tracked the illegal guns through the drug cartels is when they showed up at murder scenes. So, ouch, I know. It's not even a brilliant plan. It sounds like the most idiotic plan to me, but you can blame Attorney Eric Holder for that. He's being cited for contempt of court. I have to laugh because it's nice when the liars get caught lying. It really is. It's kind of we the little guys here, we can complain, but it really is nice when you see somebody actually squirming in their seat, like when they asked Janet Reno, when was the first time you ever heard of Operation Fast and Furious? I can't recall. My brain doesn't work all of a sudden. Yeah, I know. It's just kind of. Anyhow. So we're going to stay on topic for 2 more seconds before we get back onto more news. We have to cover more than prescription deaths. Yes, we do. So, basically, just run the figures one more time. You're 62 times more likely to be killed by your doctor than you are a homicidal maniac. All right, I'm Michael Wordsworth. We'll be right back after the station ID, a couple of commercials, and then we'll bring you some more news. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. It's a nice, wonderful, hot July afternoon with a little overcast skies, but hopefully it's not going to rain on our parade tomorrow. We have a big bike race here in Milwaukee. Everybody's very excited about that. This is Breaking Down the News. I'm Michael Wordsworth. We'll be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
And now it is time to make light of the issues.
Economists, that's right, economists. You know they're about the most useless thing. They're paid to be wrong 2/3 of the time. And I'm telling you, our economy, they keep telling us our economy is getting better, right? Right? I mean, what a joke. It's like Hitler reporting back to the German people that he's winning the war. Isn't it? I mean, just look at the jobs market right now. It's just ridiculous, huh? We must be having a jobless recovery. A jobless recovery. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying fuck about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time.
In the latest GMO wars, Monsanto suing DuPont to see who will dominate the world's food supply. That's right. Biotechnology giant Monsanto is suing one of its largest rivals, DuPont, for what the company says are violations of a licensing agreement established between the two firms back in 2002. And at that very same time, DuPont is suing Monsanto for allegedly illegally withholding important details from the Federal Patent Office about its Roundup Ready trait, as well as for allegedly engaging in anti-competitive business practices that restrict competitive agriculture. Many people are unaware of this. Pardon me. Many people are unaware of this. There we go. Got it out. But DuPont's Pioneer Hybrid division, which produces seeds, several years ago tried to develop its own genetically modified soybean product known as Optimum GAT that was intended to rival Monsanto's Roundup Ready GM soy product. When the original Optimum GAT product failed to perform as intended, however, DuPont decided to add Monsanto's Roundup Ready trait onto Optimum GAT's existing glyphosate-resistant trait, a fact that did not come to light until 2009. Once DuPont, you guys know who DuPont chemicals are, right? They go way, way back. Basically, we live in a DuPont chemical bubble. That's right. Our entire existence has been brought to you by DuPont. Well, once DuPont's trait blending activity became public knowledge, Monsanto initiated legal action against DuPont for allegedly using its Roundup Ready trait in violation of the establishing licensing agreement between the two companies, which prohibited DuPont's creation of a GM soy product containing multiple GM traits. According to Monsanto, DuPont illegally used the Roundup Ready trait without a license in hundreds of seed lines back in 2008. Oh, wow, it's the GMO. It's the war between the GMO companies, right? Da-da-da-da-da. We're going to have to fight over seeds and all their patents because we want to own everything. It's horrible, isn't it? It really is. I mean, not just my singing, but I mean the whole idea. You got big companies now competing. Who gets the right to destroy our food supply quicker? Well, this quote... You have George C. Lombardi. Hey, it's kind of like our old Coach Lombardi here. Everybody in Wisconsin knows him. Back in 1969, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he led us to the Super Bowl. Well, maybe this is his great-grandson or something. I don't know. But he's an attorney for Monsanto. Boo, boo. Any attorneys working for Monsanto, I just would presume that they are either incredibly horrible people or they just really, really need the money bad. I mean, it could be both. Well, according to this attorney, he said, I don't know, let me try to do an attorney voice. For years, they told the world GATT was going to work, said George C. Lombardi, an attorney for Monsanto. When it failed, they relied on the Roundup Ready product. Well, there you go. But DuPont, in its own defense, says Monsanto's Roundup Ready patent is unenforceable because it was not properly obtained. Properly obtained. In other words, they stole it? I don't know. One company stealing from another? Is that possible? Could corporate corruption be that bad where they're actually stealing from each other? No, I refuse to believe that. Well, according to the company, Monsanto failed to disclose pertinent details in its patent filing about how Roundup Ready seeds work and how they are made. In fact, DuPont alleges Monsanto actually lied to the federal government in order to obtain the patent, which means it cannot legally be considered valid. Dun, dun, dun. I don't know, gee. Can it? I mean, this is just something where these guys got to fight this out in court. I mean, really, both DuPont and Monsanto can rot in hell for all I care. It's kind of, I'm only reading you this article because it's just a point of interest. I mean, who reports on this stuff, really? I mean, that's why we do here. Well, the trial, which is the trial between these two megalithic food destroyers, is expected to last several weeks. That's not as long as I would think. Usually they drag this stuff on until hell freezes over, right? Some commentators believe the case will more than likely be settled rather than take its full course because neither Monsanto nor DuPont want to be hit with a surprise verdict. If the case does not proceed, however, Monsanto's Roundup Ready patent could end up being declared null and void, which would be a significant victory for food freedom. Indeed it would. Indeed it would. You're listening to Breaking Down the News. I'm going to come back with more news.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
Well, here's a cheery topic for you. The U.S. government ran chemical experiments on military veterans under Operation MKUltra, Bluebird, and Artichoke. You know, the military science, they just love their cool code names for operations, don't they? I mean, that's what being in the military is really about. Those cool names, the cool uniforms, those awesome weapons of death that you just get to legally carry around and look like a total bad guy. Ooh. Anyhow, turns out that behind all this coolness, and of course, please, I am being sarcastic. If you could see the smile on my face, I'm joking. I don't think the military is cool. I'm sorry. You know, the video games portray it as cool. It's really, from a mature adult standpoint, a military is something that is a necessity in a world where you would potentially get attacked by either criminal elements, rogue nations. It doesn't really matter. A nation state has the right to defend itself, and it's wonderful when military the military is composed of volunteers that come forth to protect their country, but it's not so cool when we protect the profit margins of the industrial military complex and we have corrupt leaders just basically, on the one hand, banking off the contracts, on the other hand, banking that this foreign policy will ensure that more future proxy wars will take place and more profits can be made by sending us off to kill each other. That ain't cool. No, it's not. Well, the United States, for all its defaults, has achieved much in its short 230-plus year history. It's a benevolent world superpower for the most part. I mean, the people here in this country, I'd like to think that they're not evil. I wonder what other people in other countries think of us. But I know what some of them have said, and I'm just not going to share that with you. Maybe you're not ready to hear that information just yet. Well, let's have some hope. There's a beacon of hope that America is still comprised of a good chunk of good, decent people. I'd like to believe that. Whereas I won't believe the lies our government puts out, I would like to believe that we are still a good and decent people at the core of this country. But a few chapters in our history, that's right, America has a couple of chapters in our history that just, weren't so benevolent, were they? How about slavery? Yeah, I mean, not just the African slaves brought over here and made to suffer, but the Irish indentured servants that were brought over here. We've got the oppression of the Native American tribes, causes of the civil rights movement, and moments of unconstitutionality on the part of our elected leaders. Well, I mean, we ran family death courts in the 1800s. I mean, Hitler was kind of surprised when he started his eugenics program because we tried to get that going here. We have, on 3 occasions that I could think of, done false flag attacks on our own military in order to get us into war. Let's see, the War of Spanish-American War, we sunk the Maine. Then, just right off the bat, we knew Pearl Harbor was going to be attacked, moved our ships out of there, and let the Japanese bomb that. That was, I don't know if you could count that directly as a false flag or just a really well pulled off maneuver, because the people after World War I were not going into World War II. That was supposed to be the war to end all wars. Well, it didn't. And then you had the Gulf of Tonkin incident. This is all declassified now. It's on the History Channel. I don't even need to make stuff up because the truth is far more shocking, actually. Honestly, it really is. So aside from a few chapters in our history, that's right, we're still going to believe that there's good, decent people in America and that we are largely a benevolent nation, unfortunately run by sociopaths and psychopaths. I don't know. Is that a good way to describe it? I don't know. Hey, if you'd like to call in today, add your 2 cents. The number is 414-935-2951. That's right. Just call in. We'd love to have you. We'll talk in a moment right now about something that's really not that funny, but what are you going to do? U.S. government, quite frankly, ran chemical experiments on military veterans, and that's what I'm reporting on. That's right. I'm for our troops. I honestly am for our troops. Our troops are for us, the U.S. citizens of America, and everybody's growing wise to what's been going on. And now I'm dropping this bombshell on everybody here this Friday saying that, look, they've been doing experiments on veterans, which is just a horrible, horrible thing. The maltreatment is summed up in a recent federal case. In late July, a group of veterans managed to win a court order forcing the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to hand over a trove of documents detailing the department's alleged Cold War-era drug experiments on Vietnam vets. What's problematic about this case isn't the decision. The VA owes these veterans any answer they are seeking, but the fact that the case had to be filed at all. Project Paperclip. Well, according to court documents, U.S. Magistrate Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley in Oakland, California, said in her ruling that the documents requested by the veteran plaintiffs were, quote, squarely relevant to their claim that the government, through the VA, did not adequately notify veterans of chemicals they were purposely exposed to during experimentation, and, perhaps more importantly, what effects that exposure might have had on their physical and mental health. Well, before I continue on this, I want to add that I myself, Michael Wordsworth, was in fact in the military, and if I do recall that actually Basically, yeah, you swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States, but you also sign yourself off as property of the U.S. military. That's right. And military experiments on soldiers, medical experiments on military personnel is nothing new. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually quite legal because once you join that military institution, you are no longer property of yourself. You are property of the United States government. Why? For instance, if I as a soldier were to get sunburned, that's right, I could actually be charged with damaging U.S. property. Why you think that's ridiculous? That's because you're a civilian. In the military, this is all normal stuff, and we accept it. But, you know, whereas a lot of us were ready to die for our country, a lot of us would have appreciated if they were experimenting on us with chemicals. It's, you know, not a bad thing. I mean, we just want to know. Is it necessary? I don't know. But, I mean, I should play the Henry Kissinger article later where he said that military personnel are just dumb animals to be used for foreign policy objectives. What a horrible statement Kissinger made. And I don't know, not many people blame him for that one, but details of the sad episode in our history were contained in a 2009 class action suit regarding the chemical testing on U.S. soldiers. It was filed by Vietnam Veterans of America and individual soldiers. The suit, charged the U.S. Army and the Central Intelligence Agency, known as the CIA, with the help of former Nazi scientists, of using at least 7,800 vets as guinea pigs to test the effects of as many as 400 different types of drugs and chemicals. They include mescaline, which is a psychedelic alkaloid, LSD, which is another psychedelic drug, amphetamines, barbiturates, nerve agents, and mustard gas. The suit also says the government worked to cover up the testing and the nature of its experiments, which began in the 1950s under such exotic code names as Operation Bluebird, Artichoke, and MK Ultra. The government launched Project Paperclip. I thought that was, yes, it was. That's where they brought over the Nazi scientists. It is. My memory is not failing me. The government launched Project Paperclip, the suit alleges, an all-out effort by the Army and CIA to allegedly recruit former Nazi scientists, to help test various psychochemicals, as well as develop a new truth serum using the nation's own vets as test subjects. Courthouse News Services reported that. Thanks, Courthouse News Services. This quote, over half of these Nazi recruits had been members of the SS or Nazi Party, said the class action suit. The paperclip name was chosen because so many of the employment applications were clipped to immigration papers. According to Colin A. Ross, a psychiatrist and author of the book known as CIA Directors, he pored over more than 15,000 documents that he received from the nation's premier spy agency detailing the mind control operations, which he said took place between 1950 and 1972 at many leading universities, including, get this, Harvard, Yale, Cornell, Johns Hopkins, and Stanford. Those are prominent institutions. It's just tragic that we would have mind control, chemical testing done on soldiers at these institutions. But the goal, simply, it's all about mind control. In a report posted on the Citizens Commission on Human Rights International's website, Ross said MK Ultra and related programs had several overlapping purposes. One was to purchase mind control drugs from suppliers. Another was to form relationships with researchers who might later be used as consultants at the top secret level. The core purpose, had a Porky the Pig moment there. The core purpose of these programs was to learn how to enhance interrogations, erase and insert memories, and create and run Manchurian candidates. Ross said all that this documented is clearly and explicitly in the declassified CIA documents he obtained, though he said it was merely a glimpse into the tip of the iceberg of CIA military mind control. He wrote, and I'm quoting him there, or I'm quoting him now, The experimental subjects were not told the real purpose of the experiments, did not give informed consent, were not afforded outside counsel, and received no meaningful follow-up. As described by the psychiatrist in published papers, experiments with LSD and other hallucinogens combined with sensory deprivation, electroshock, and other interrogation techniques resulted in psychosis and death, among other side effects. How do you like that? Death is a side effect. That's not a side effect. That's a main effect. Death is a very main effect. The purpose of these experiments was to see how easily a person could be put into a psychotic state or controlled. How easily? It's apparently not that hard. Just give them a pack of beer and a television and they're out. In a review of the MK Ultra program, which was launched in 1953, Wired.com said its goal was simply mind control. This quote from the report, which said the then CIA director Alan Dulles authorized this program. In 1953, the agency launches one of its most dubious covert programs ever, turning unsuspecting humans into guinea pigs for its research into mind-altering drugs. Dulles wanted to close the brainwashing gap that arose after the United States learned that American prisoners of war in Korea were subjected to mind control techniques by their captors. That report from Wired.com. Programmable assassins, that's right. This report says that loath to be outdone by foreign enemies, the CIA sought, through its research, to devise a truth serum to enhance the interrogations of POWs and captured spies. Sounds good, right? Well, let's see. The agency also wanted to develop techniques and drugs such as amnesia pills, to create CIA super agents who would be immune to the mind control efforts of adversaries. Just erase our minds. Kind of reminds me of Men in Black. I don't think it's as nice as that, though. The creation of so-called Manchurian candidates, which is a programmable assassin, essentially was also a goal of this program. Besides drug and chemical experimentation, the program included the use of radiological implants, hypnosis and subliminal persuasion, electroshock therapy, and isolation techniques, the report also said. In their suit, the vets level similar charges that the government was attempting to develop and test substances capable of inducing mind control, euphoria, altered personalities, confusion, physical paralysis, mania, illogical thinking, and other effects. Many of the experiments, the suit says, meaning the lawsuit that the vets are filing, were conducted at Army facilities at Edgewood Arsenal and Fort Detrick. Some left a number of veterans saddened with debilitating health problems for decades to follow. Worse, the veterans say the government has neglected to provide follow-up medical care to mitigate the damages. Some soldiers died from the testing, while others suffered physical and mental ailments, including seizures and paranoia. Ugh. Hey, just because you're paranoid don't mean they're not out to get you. In this latest bid for full disclosure, the VVA sought documents from the government that reveal the VA's processes of identifying and notifying soldiers who may have been exposed to the chemical and biological tests. Well, my God, thank us for bringing you more horrible news. When we get back, I'm going to read the difference between nicotine and dopamine and the endeavor of how maybe you could help quit smoking. It's good to know these things. It's good to know these things. You interested in quitting smoking? A lot of people are. It's not a bad thing. I applaud anyone that attempts the effort. I understand why people smoke. It is an addictive drug, and, well, quite frankly, many find it quite pleasurable. The question becomes, is the pleasure worth the long-term health risks? We're going to talk about that when we come back. I'm Michael Wordsworth with Wordsworth Listening To.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
When you're out on the road, you want to know them tires are touching the pavement. You want rubber to concrete. When you're out there, you want to drive knowing that you're in control of the wheel. Well, what about your government? Don't you think your government should have its reality check and the rubber hit the pavement? What's going to put the brakes on the rampant fiscal spending, budget problems? It's not the voter, it's not the constituents, it won't be the leaders. The
problem ain't the leaders, it's the followers. Get behind the wheel, America. It's like the roaring 20s all over again. The stock markets are well above 12,000. It's as if nothing could go wrong, or could it? The truth is, the American economy is not as strong as it actually appears. The job reports for June were down, manufacturing down. The actual CPI rate, if you adjusted it correctly, would show that unemployment is at a staggering 22%. 46 million Americans are on food stamps, and guess who runs that program? Not the government, no, Goldman Sachs. I'm telling you, the situation here is more abrupt than we think. Wake up, America. We have hard times coming. And we need to prepare for what lies ahead. Are you tired of commercials always telling you that you're tired? When you know you're tired because you wake up early and go to bed late, and every moment in between is spent trying to figure out how you're going to make the next dollar. Well, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are walking around in a sleep-deprived, zombie-like state, amplified by psych meds and pharmaceuticals found in their drinking water. So just be glad you're not one of them, unless you are, in which case I'm sorry you had to hear this. But wait, there's more. If we keep at this current pace, we will surely lose our democratic republic and soon be standing in food lines for the poisonous rations the new totalitarian government will hand out. Don't delay, get involved, get informed.
Every smoker and ex-smoker knows that nicotine is the major culprit of the smoking addiction. In addition, they may even know that cigarette manufacturers use ammonia to freebase nicotine in order to boost its addictive hook up to 35 times. Yet, scarce is the man or woman who understands how nicotine functions like a dopamine imposter, raising levels of this feel-good chemical in the body artificially. Nicotine also acts as an enabler, widening capillaries, allowing for the rush of 4,000 plus chemicals in a commercial cigarette to penetrate cells and foster anxiety, nervousness, and sickness. Dopamine can also raise levels of awareness and general pleasure, but the problem is that as dopamine levels increase from the use of cigarettes, natural chemical reactions in the body like dopamine and serotonin decrease their natural production. When a smoker tries to quit cold turkey, they experience days, weeks, and sometimes months of depression and anxiety, mainly because their dopamine production levels cannot recover quickly enough. Ever hear of people getting cranky after they quit? Well, yeah, that's what happens when you quit smoking. Well, the central nervous system is so accustomed to being nurtured with nicotine, it's almost like a borderline diabetic's body, which barely produces insulin because it's so accustomed to a higher sugar diet. Replenish with the natural supplement which boosts dopamine levels and ends the cravings. Put simply, nicotine damages dopamine production for smokers. So to supplement the production of dopamine is the ultimate way to help a smoker quit, and quit for good. Even though the smoking habit is also a behavior addiction, the feel-good drug aspect is stronger and is the driving force for smokers to return to the habit when something stressful comes along, unless they know how and how much to supplement. The highly underestimated issue for smokers is that commercial tobacco is free-based with ammonia and has been about for the last 50 years. Marlboro got busted in the 1990s and admitted to it, and then paid off Blue Cross and Blue Shield over $4 billion to let it rest, basically so they could keep doing it. Ouch. Then all the other major brands learned the news of the hook trick and started doing it as well. So, it's like, yeah, smoking's bad, but basically this article is explaining that they're freebasing tobacco. I'm sure a lot of you don't know it. You've at least heard the term freebasing, right? It's associated with cocaine, I believe. You cook the cocaine down, it makes it stronger, more pure. Well, that's what they're doing with the tobacco. And they used ammonia to do it. And yes, it's like 35 times as strong when you do that. So, like, smoking tobacco is one thing, but, like, we've managed to take this thing to a whole nother level. Ammonia cooked with tobacco makes the nicotine up to 35 times as strong. That's some powerful stuff. The function of ammonia in commercial cigarette manufacturing is to turn the nicotine into a vapor-ready form by converting bound molecules into free molecules. If you're smoking commercial cigarettes, you're getting up to 100 milligrams of potency in one cigarette. This alone wrecks the body's ability to properly regulate dopamine and serotonin levels, balancing the entire process on 3 fulcrums: the potency of the brand being smoked, how many cigarettes are smoked per day, and when the cigarettes are being smoked. This is why so many smokers grab a cigarette and light it up before or after something stressful. Why do most nicotine-related cessation programs fail? Well, nicotine gum delivers between 2 and 4 milligrams per piece, nothing close to the amount received from smoking an ammonia-treated cigarette. The nicotine patches deliver less than 1 milligram each hour, and that's at a slow, fairly constant release into the blood. Again, nothing like the nicotine vapors in a commercial cigarette, which reach the heart and brain within 3 seconds. Medications like Chantix and Zyban do not contain nicotine at all. Well, let's visualize the war that's going on inside a smoker's brain. You got nicotine versus dopamine. Natural fight or flight reactions are now becoming nervous disorders. Organic feelings and emotions about life in general become exaggerated problems which seem insurmountable at times. After long-term use of high-potency cigarettes, a person can permanently cripple the dopamine system and ruin the ability to feel pleasure at all without first smoking a cigarette. My goodness, that's horrible information. I'm Michael Wordsworth. I hope you found that interesting. We're going to take a 2-second break and be right back. Well, Putin's geopolitical chess game with Washington in Syria and Eurasia is going on still. Since reassuming his post as Russia's president, Vladimir Putin has lost no minute in addressing the most urgent geopolitical threats to Russia internationally. Not surprisingly, at the center of his agenda is the explosive situation in the Middle East, above all, Syria. Here, Putin is engaging every imaginable means of preventing a further deterioration of the situation into what easily could become another world war by miscalculation. His activities in recent weeks involve active personnel diplomacy with Syria's government, as well as the so-called opposition Syrian National Council. It involves intense diplomacy with Erdogan's Turkey regime. It involves closed-door diplomacy with Obama. It involves direct diplomacy with Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu. Syria itself, contrary to what most Western media portray, is a long-standing multi-ethnic and religiously tolerant secular state with an Alawite Muslim president, Bashar al-Assad, married to a Sunni wife. The Alawite sect is an offshoot of the Shia Islam, which doesn't force their women to wear headscarves and are liberal by Sunni standards, especially in the fundamental places like Saudi Arabia, where women are forbidden to even hold a driver's license. The overall Syrian population is a diverse mix of Alawites, Druze and Kurds, Sunnis and Armenian Orthodox Christians. Were the minority regime of al-Assad to fall, experts estimate that, like in Egypt, the murky Sunni Muslim Brotherhood organization would emerge as the dominant organized political force, something certainly not welcome in the Tel Aviv and certainly not in either Russia or China. According to an informed assessment by Gendra Singh, retired Indian diplomat with decades of service in the Middle East and a deep familiarity with the ethnic mix inside Syria, were the minority Alawite regime of al-Assad to fall, the country would rapidly descend into a bloodbath that would make estimates of 17,000 killed to date a mere prelude. Singh estimates, quote, a defeat of Assad-led regime would lead to the slaughter of Alawites, Shias, Christians, even Kurds and Druze. Not Jews, but Druzes. D-R-U-Z-E-S. In all, 20% of a population of 20 million Syrians. That would be some 4 million Syrians that ought to be food for thought for those in the West cheering on a murky, dubious opposition Syrian National Council that's dominated by the ominous Muslim Brotherhood in an armed opposition free a Syrian army, and that's been reported even by the New York Times as rife with factional armed splits. Moreover, the conflict, were it to be descend into a Libya-like international bloodbath, would spill out across the borders into Turkey. That's right, Syrian coastal area has a significant Alawite population, and a large number of Alawites live in the adjoining Turkish provinces of Hatay and Antakya. To sort out fact from fiction inside Syria, boy, that's something we need to do. To sort out fact from fiction inside Syria is daunting, as media are limited and opposition spokesmen have been repeatedly caught lying about events. In one recent instance, a UK journalist claimed he was deliberately led into a potential death trap by rebel opposition forces to score propaganda against the Damascus regime. The UK Channel 4 News chief correspondent Alex Thompson told Associated Press that Syrian rebels set him up to die in no man's land near the Lebanese border, saying they wanted to use his death at the hands of the government forces to score propaganda points. And in one brazen example of political manipulation, BBC was recently caught publishing a photograph it claimed was of a massacre at Al-Hula on 25th of May 2012, which in 108 persons are known to have died, including 49 children. It turned out the picture had been taken by Italian photojournalist Marco Di Lauro in Iraq 2003. What a big cover-up that was. The stakes in this geopolitical chess game are nothing less than survival first of Syria as a sovereign nation, whatever its flaws and defects. More, it ultimately involves the survival of Iran, Russia, and China as sovereign nations, together with the other BRIC states, known as the BRICS, B-R-I-C, Brazil, India, and South Africa. Longer term, it involves the matter of survival of civilization as we know it, and avoidance of a world war that would decimate the world population not by tens of millions as 70 years ago, like in World War II, but likely this time by billions. The Syrian stakes for Moscow? Well, Russians' Putin has drawn a deep, hard line in the sand around the survival of al-Assad and Syria as the stable state. Few ask why Russia is warning of the possible war if Washington persists to demand immediate regime changes in Syria, as Hillary Clinton is doing. It is not because Russia is intent on advancing its own imperialist agenda in the Middle East like we are. It's in its little shape militarily and economically to do so, even if it had wanted. Rather, it's about preserving ports' rights to Russia's only Mediterranean naval ports at Tartus, the only remaining Russian military base outside the former Soviet Union, and its only Mediterranean fueling spot. In the event of a showdown with NATO, the base becomes strategic to Russia. Yet there's more at stake for Russia. Putin and Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov have made clear were NATO and the USA to launch military action against Assad Syria, the consequences would be staggering. Reliable sources in Damascus have reported the presence of at least 100,000 Russian technical advisors in the country. That's a lot, and the Russian the Russian freighter carrying rebuilt Russian Mi-25 attack helicopters is reportedly bound for Syria, while several days earlier, a Russian naval flotilla sailed for Tartus, led by the Russian destroyer Admiral Chabanenko. An earlier attempt to send the rebuilt helicopters back to Syria, which had earlier purchased them, was blocked in June off Scotland's coast when it sailed under a non-Russian freighter flag. Now Moscow has made it clear it will tolerate no interference in its traffic with Damascus. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Vyacheslav Dzirikhan. Sorry, that's a tough name to pronounce, but there you go. Dzirikhan. Well, anyhow, the Russian Defense Ministry announced that, quote, the fleet will be sent on task to guarantee the safety of our ships to prevent anyone from interfering with them in the middle of a blockade. I remind you, comrade, there are no limits, he soberly added. In so many words, what Moscow is announcing is that it is willing to face the 21st century version of the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis if NATO foolishly persists in pressing regime change in Damascus. As it has openly emerged that the so-called democratic opposition in Syria is being dominated by the shadowy Muslim Brotherhood, hardly an organization renowned for multi-ethnic democratic tendencies, a victory of U.S.-backed Muslim Brotherhood regime in Syria, Moscow also believes, would unleash a wave of Muslim-led destabilizations across Central Asia into republics of the former Soviet Union. China is also extremely sensitive about such a danger. Only recently confronted with bloody riots, a Muslim organization in its oil-rich Xinjiang region, which is an autonomous province quietly sponsored by the U.S. government. Russia has joined firmly with China since both nations fell into a catastrophic trap over abstaining in the UN Security Council from vetoing the U.S. resolution. That U.S. resolution opened the doors to NATO destruction of not only Muammar Gaddafi, but of Libya itself as functioning as a country. This author has spoken personally in Moscow and in Beijing since the Libya debacle, asking well-informed persons in both places how in effect they could have been so short-sighted on Libya. They both clearly have since concluded that further advance of Washington's agenda for what George W. Bush called the Greater Middle East Project is diametrically opposed to the national interest of both China and Russia, hence the iron opposition to the NATO agenda in Syria for regime change. To date, Russia and China, permanent veto members of the UN Security Council, have 3 times exercised their veto over new U.S.-sponsored sanctions against Syria, the latest on July 19th. Putin and his foreign minister Sergei Lavrov insist on a strict adherence to the proposed peace plan of former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Unlike what Washington prefers to journalists read into it, the 6-point Annan plan calls for no regime change, rather for a negotiated settlement, an end to the fighting on both sides, a ceasefire. Washington's Janus faced duplicity. Aligned on the side of violent regime change in Syria are a bizarre coalition that includes, in addition to Washington and its European vassal states, most prominently Saudi Arabia, hardly a regime anyone would accuse of being a paragon of democracy. Another lead role against Damascus is being played by Qatar, home to U.S. military, as well as the blatantly pro-NATO propaganda channel Al Jazeera. In addition, the Turkish government of Recep, I can't even pronounce this, is providing training and space to prepare armed mercenaries and others to flow into the border into neighboring Syria. In an attempt by the Erdogan government to send Turkish Phantom Air Force fighter jets into Syrian airspace, flying provocatively low, apparently in order to incite a Gulf of Tonkin incident to fan flames of NATO intervention a la Libya 2 weeks ago. Well, that fell flat when Turkey's general staff issued a statement saying no traces of explosives or flammable products were found in the debris recovered from the sea. Erdogan was forced to shift his line to cover face, no longer using the phrase shot down by Syria, and instead referring to it as, quote, our plane that Syria claimed to have destroyed. NATO has established a command and control center in Iskenderun, in Turkey's Hatay province, near the Syrian border months ago to organize, train, and arm the, quote, anything but free Syrian army. The Obama administration, not wanting a full Syria war before U.S. elections in November, reportedly also told Erdogan to cool it for now. I love it. Hey, you got to chill out on that. We got an election coming up. We're going to do the war. We're going to do the war, but it's going to be after the election. That's right. I need to get reelected for the election before we go to war. Well, most Westerners who take their knowledge of world affairs religiously from the pages of Washington Post or CNN or BBC are convinced the Syrian mess is a clear-cut case of good guys versus the bad guys. The good guys are being portrayed in this sense as the Free Syrian Army, and the bad guys are the al-Assad dictatorship with its armed forces. Well, that's a perception put out by the media. For more than a year, Western media has run footage, some has noted, not even filmed in Syria, claiming that innocent, unarmed opposition, civilian pro-democracy populations, that's great, pro-democracy. I wonder if there are any pro-democracy populations in the Middle East. That they're being massacred ruthlessly in a one-sided butchery by the regime. They never explain how it would serve Assad to alienate his strongest asset to survival, namely the support of a majority of Syrians against what he has accurately named foreign intervention into sovereign Syrian affairs. Indeed, numerous eyewitnesses, such as journalists, account from inside Turkey and Syria include Russian Today, have alleged that from the beginning the peaceful democratic opposition, that's a quote, has secretly been provided with arms and training, often inside camps across the Turkish side. Professor Ibrahim Aloush from Zaytuni University in Jordan told RT this quote. It's a long quote. Basically, he's saying, weaponry is being smuggled into Syria in large quantities from all over the place. It is pretty clear that the rebels have been receiving arms from abroad, and Syrian television has been showing almost daily shipments of arms being smuggled into Syria via Lebanon, Turkey, and other border crossings. Since the rebels have been supported by the GCC, which is the Gulf Cooperational Council, and by NATO, it is safe to assume that they are getting their finances and weaponry from the same sources that are offering them political coverage and financial backing. Well, there you go. I did my best to impersonate that quote. Hope that helped. Now I'm going to impersonate a news broadcaster. How's that? It's hard to say what's real here, right? One veteran Turkish journalist, whom this author interviewed in Ankara in April, just back from an extensive tour of Syria, gave his eyewitness account of the capture of a small band of opposition fighters. The journalist, fluent in Arabic, oh my goodness gracious, this article goes on and on and on, and I swear I'd like to read this all to you, but it's just, you know what, we're going to go ADD on you. That's right, we're going to say, that's all we can report for that issue. Let's take a break, come back, and cover some, we've got the London Olympics coming up, 1,200 more troops, enough to continue games, just about any scenario. It's a lot of troops. We got foreign troops to confiscate American guns under the new UN treaty. New York Times openly admits mainstream media stories are scripted by the White House. Pfft, no kidding. GSK whistleblower says Glaxo marketing VP Sir Andrew Whitty was deeply involved in a massive criminal cover-up. Oh no. Public vigil red alert. Raw milk advocate James Stewart seized by armed bounty hunters driving unmarked vehicles with no plates. We got Greek government, European officials plan billions in new social cuts. Global elite descend on East London for Olympics. Hundreds killed and wounded in Iraq, bombings and ambushes. Union agrees to Con Ed demands to end lockout in New York. U.S. states opt out of Medicaid expansion, could deny coverage up to 6 million. Overcrowding, budget cuts strain Illinois prisons. That's quite not a shocker there. Actually, that's horrible. Horrible. Tensions at China-Africa summit. Ooh, we should read that one. Australia, Caltex announces closure of Kurnell refinery. Well, this is more news. I could read these headlines and get into these stories bit by bit here. Just let me take 2 seconds to rest my voice, and I'll be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one, with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying fuck about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time. This is a special Breaking Down the News celebrity call-in segment where we have known political figures call in and conduct an interview. Today's guest, he was once the National Security Advisor under Nixon during the Vietnam War era. and later Secretary of State. He's probably the most prominent unindicted war criminal roaming around today. I'd like to bring onto the show Mr. The Bloodstains Won't Come Off My Hands No Matter How Hard I Scrub Them, Kissinger. Welcome to the show, you evil, bloodthirsty monster.
Good afternoon, Michael. Thank you for having me on your show.
Now, you've managed to really piss off a lot of people during your long career as a warmonger hiding in sheep's clothing.
I really have. If I had a conscience, this would really bother me. The illegal, we do immediately. The unconstitutional takes a little longer.
I'm not sure what the hell that means, but you were once a big man in foreign affairs throughout the world, and I bet it's hard to get on anyone's show these days, since people have been rightfully charging you as a war criminal.
The nice thing about being a celebrity is that if you bore people, they think it's your fault. Actually, I make a few public appearances now and then. I was recently honored at the conference on Indochina.
What?
I know. It is ironic, isn't it?
Wait. Let me get this straight. You, the man who, along with Richard Holbrooke, was part of the team in the Nixon White House, helping to craft the Vietnam policy, including Operation Phoenix, which saw the assassination of South Vietnamese political and religious leaders. You are attending this conference.
A country that demands moral perfection in its foreign policy will achieve neither perfection nor security.
But you, Mr. The Bloodstains Won't Come Off My Hands No Matter How Hard I Scrub Them, Kissinger, authorized the war to bleed over into Cambodia. The terrible consequence was the eventual rise of Pol Pot and the Cambodian killing fields, and now they invite you to a conference on Indochina hosted by Hillary Clinton?
Imagine my chagrin. Ha 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 ha. Hillary Clinton had to introduce me, which wasn't easy, given her rude comments about me prior to the conference.
Oh, come on. She was just probably covering her own tush. You know she worships at the same altar of death that you do.
Perhaps, but it was ironic that she had to introduce me. Ha ha ha.
Now, in recent years, Mr. The Bloodstains Won't Come Off My Hands No Matter How Hard I Scrub Them, Kissinger, you have come under fire for private comments once made to Nixon during the Bangladesh-Pakistani war, in which you described the then Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi as a, quote, bitch and a witch.
I regret that now.
What, saying that?
No, getting caught saying that. I regret that now.
You also said the Indians are bastards shortly before the war.
I did. What are you going to do, you know?
It's kind of surreal with the coup attempt in Ecuador that this harkens back to your policies in Latin America, which saw the overthrow and murder of Salvador Allende in Chile, and your prompting of Operation Condor in the Plan Mercurio, which oversaw the kidnapping of peoples in Latin American countries, leftist activists. These people were disappeared under Operation Condor, and now we have Hillary Clinton praising you for this evil well done.
It's not a matter of what is true that counts, but a matter of what is perceived to be true.
Do you see a parallel between Vietnam and Afghanistan today?
The war profits must flow unabated. Military men are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy.
I can't believe you just said that.
Well, I said it before, and I will say it again. Here, I will say it again right now. Military men are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy.
Mr. Kissinger, you are indeed a madman. It is hard to believe that you played such a pivotal role in our country's foreign policy for decades, and that is all the time I will lend to your madness. You're out of here.
It was a pleasure being on your show, Michael. Good day.
And good riddance. I am Michael Wordsworth, having just interviewed Henry, the bloodstains won't come off my hands no matter how hard I scrub them, Kissinger. Back in a moment. All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program.
And now, live from River West Radio, the man with Wordsworth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth.
Welcome back. All right, check it out. Foreign troops to confiscate American guns under the new UN treaty. This quote from attributed from Henry Kissinger during the 1991 Bilderberg meeting. Henry Kissinger said, "Today, Americans would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they will be grateful." For those who've been wondering how the domestic gun grabbers or the United Nations think they're going to get away with gun control here at home, one need look no further than Article 15 of the UN's Arms Trade Treaty. Many American troops are patriots who understand their oaths to uphold the Constitution, so they can't be counted upon to confiscate guns, but foreign troops are another story. Article 15 of the UN Arms Trade Treaty, if ratified, provides for foreign assistance to implement the treaty and mandates that nations who can provide requested support must do so if requested by member nations. That includes legal, financial, technical, as well as material assistance to enforce a treaty that declares, quote, recreational, cultural, historical, and sporting activities to be the exclusively recognized reasons for lawful private ownership, and which further recognizes the inherent rights of the state. For example, nations under this treaty to self-defense, but makes no mention of the rights of the individual. Let's go over the language of the Article 15 for yourself. I have it right here in front of me. Article 15 from the International Assistance reads, in fulfilling the obligation of this treaty, state parties may seek inter alia legal assistance. Oh, God, it's just such a boring statement. I almost hate to read this whole thing to you. Let me see if I can find the highlights out of this thing. Receive assistance through the United Nations, sub-regional boards, non-governmental organizations on a bilateral basis. Such assistance may include technical, financial, material, and other forms of assistance as needed upon request. Will foreign troops be going door to door to ensure compliance with new gun registry policies, impose limits on ammunition and magazines, or in enforcing outright confiscation? Well, in a 2010 report, a joint training exercises in Chicago in which U.S. troops drilled with Eastern Bloc troops to partner in stopping terrorism, deal with meth dealers and weapons of mass destruction. That's a strange combination, isn't it? Meth dealers and weapons of mass destruction. Those do not go well at all, man. My goodness. People on meth should not have weapons of mass destruction, okay? Not that I'm saying. Anyhow, I got it. Back to the more serious news. Well, anyhow, these occupations, foreign troops on our soil training to occupy us and basically lock down the American public. Very horrible stuff. Moving on to the London Olympics. 12 or more troops, enough to continue games in just about any scenario. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of like as if they were going to hold the Olympics in Baghdad or something. They got so much security. With only 48 hours notice, it was announced Wednesday, 12 or more troops were told they would be protecting the Olympic Games this year. In addition, 1,000 soldiers have been placed on standby, which, if called in, would bring this year's Olympic security to roughly 19,200 troops, a number equal to the entire armed forces of the Western African country of Guinea. That's right. U.S. intelligence and British security officials have co-established a threat integration center. Ooh, that sounds so cool, isn't it? A threat integration center to analyze potential Olympics threat data. Other security measures include drafted U.S. TSA agents, body scanners, an LRAD sound cannon, fighter jets. Ooh, fighter jets. How the hell? I guess that's to escort anybody that tries to fly a plane down there. All told, the 2012 Olympics comes with a price tag of approximately $14.5 billion. What scenario could possibly occur amidst a security operation of this caliber and cause short actual of war? I mean, you could have a small war for $15 billion. You really could. Well, the New York Times openly admits mainstream media stories are scripted by the White House. That's no shock to you, not if you're listening to Breaking Down the News. Millions of Americans have long suspected that the so-called mainstream media is big-time controlled, whether selectively or institutionally. A recent New York Times story not only substantiates that belief, it proves just how controlled the messages are that are coming from those who mean to rule over us. What's more, the story demonstrates that most major media sources are complicit in the packaging of information the public is, quote, allowed to hear. The revelations may not necessarily be groundbreaking news to many Americans who already suspected they weren't getting unfiltered or unbiased reporting, though the extent of the control over the information reaching the public from the major campaigns may surprise many. But the revelation should certainly be disturbing to voters who are trying to make choices based on altered or incomplete information. Of course, that's the point. Full disclosure would mean giving a rival something to a campaign for or against. So it's understandable for a candidate to want to carefully control his or her message. Were it to become shameful is when the media willfully goes along with it and allows it to happen on purpose. Media is supposed to be unbiased reporting. I suppose, though, even I have a bias here, but my bias is towards liberty. It's against tyranny. It's for freedom. What can I say? Is that a bad bias? Let's consider the re-election campaign of President Obama. According to the Times, quotes for the candidates often come back to them from the campaign headquarters in Chicago, and those quotes come back redacted, meaning stripped of colorful metaphors, colloquial language, and anything even mildly provocative. They are emailed to reporters who have been allowed, essentially, to interview campaign officials, but only under the caveat that the press office has veto power over what statements can be quoted and attributed by name. In a different age, perhaps, such a restrictive requirement might have drawn the ire of a respectable journalist, but no more today. No, most grudgingly agree to such preconditions. Those who do not agree, it appears, are not given the opportunity to interview. So in other words, if you're a reporter and you don't agree to having your information edited, then you don't get to do the report or the interview. Once the interview is complete, the scrubbing process begins, if you do get through it. The reporters check their interview notes and review tape recorders for the juiciest of sound bites. At that point, the quotes they select are submitted to the campaign for approval. The verdict from the campaign, this is a quote, an operation that prides itself on staying consistently on script, is often no. Barack Obama does not approve this message. That from the papers whose own reporters, presumably, must subject themselves to the same treatment. So much for the old grade lady's song, long-time mantra, all the news that's fit to print. Control comes from both sides of the aisle. Then again, maybe the phenomenon of prepackaged quotes and releases is at least partially our fault. Americans, after all, seem to be obsessed with the gotcha mentality of soundbite reporting. But then again, did the mainstream media hook us? After all, they are the ones who have accustomed us to this kind of sensationalism, aren't they? Yes, the media culture is obsessed with if it bleeds, it leads, but only because we're still following their lead. While this kind of, quote, pre-approval process is standard operating procedure for the Obama campaign, the campaign of Republican Mitt Romney has a, quote, quality control apparatus in place as well. The paper said the Romney machine also likes to airbrush quotes, especially when it comes to interviewing his 5 sons. Here's a quote. Romney advisors almost always require that reporters ask them for the green light on anything from a conversation that they would like to include in an article And that, according to the New York Times. And a classic understatement, the Times calls this unacceptable practice a double-edged sword because reporters are, quote, getting on the record quotes that they have long asked for, but losing much of the spontaneity and authenticity of their interviews. And the American people are losing too. If quotes are sanitized, what other information is being cherry-picked, or worse, being left out of completely by a mainstream media that is supposed to be the protector of liberties and freedom, not a facilitator for the powers that be? We may never know what we never know, and that's the real danger. Blanket anonymity at new levels. Needless to say, the Obama campaign refused to allow anyone to go on record for the Times story. The report didn't say whether the Romney campaign was asked to go on record for it either, but the paper did single out the current administration with this from the New York Times saying, under President Obama, the instance on blanket anonymity has grown to new levels, and that's from the New York Times. Not making it up here. Well, we got Glaxo marketing VP Sir Andrew Whitty was deeply involved in a massive criminal cover-up recently. The recent landmark ruling against drug giant GlaxoSmithKline, which as we recently reported led to a massive criminal fine of more than $3 billion and a guilty plea by the company of committing felony crimes, was followed by an apology from the GSK Vice President of Marketing, Sir Andrew Whitty. What a name, eh? I'm Sir Andrew Whitty, and I'd like to make a comment on my company's past failures. But according to the whistleblower, Gregory Thorpe, the apology is meaningless, as Whitty had been working for GSK during the years when the company was proven to be engaged in illegal activity and was more than likely involved in it. Not only that, but Thorpe was the one punished by GSK for coming forward with the truth, a retribution that he has had to sustain for more than a decade, while Whitty was recently knighted by the United Kingdom government for his supposed service to the British economy and pharmaceutical industry. That's right, screw up and move up. If anything, Whitty's ridiculous apology is nothing more than a lame attempt at shifting blame from himself to supposed past scapegoats, all the while claiming that GlaxoSmithKline is now a new company that operates honestly. Oh, well, we're going to believe that. We've got raw milk advocate James Stewart seized by armed bounty hunters driving unmarked vehicles with no plates. This is... I just had to bring this up because it's amazing. You know, it's more dangerous in America now to sell raw milk than it is to sell drugs. You can get your farm or home raided by a SWAT team for selling raw milk. I'm not kidding you. I'm sure if you talk to drug dealers, they would say, hell, I would never touch raw milk, man. No way. No way. The heat's too bad. Well, James Stewart, the 65-year-old raw milkman and founder of Rawsome Foods, was assaulted near his home today by 3 armed men driving unmarked luxury vehicles with no license plates. They were carrying firearms on their hips and dressed in gangster-style street clothes, satanic T-shirt imagery, and tattoos. They claimed he made making an arrest and verbally assaulted James, spray-peppered his face, and then forced his head against a car and screamed, according to witnesses, "You better listen to me or you're going to have a bad freaking day." It was the other F word, but I had to edit it for air here. Well, this guy is guilty of selling raw milk. That's what he is, and he's continuing to get harassed by these guys. It's incredible, incredible. Let's take a 2-second news report. I'll come right back with Iraq. Ooh, Iraq. It's just getting bloody over there again. I'm Michael Wordsworth with Wordsworth Listening To. Hundreds killed and wounded in Iraq, bombings and ambushes. More than 100 people were killed in a series of bombings and shootings throughout Iraq, July 23rd, in the bloodiest single day of sectarian fighting in at least 1 year. Official Iraqi sources placed the casualty total at 115 dead and over 300 wounded. The violence was directed mainly at Shiite targets, including police and military units stationed in Sunni-majority areas, and markets and other civilian targets in Shiite-majority areas. The Sunni-based group Al-Qaeda in Iraq claims responsibility for most of the attacks. The single largest death toll came in the town of Taji, 12 miles north of Baghdad. Bombs planted near 5 houses in the predominantly Sunni town exploded an hour after dawn. When police and other rescuers rushed to the scene, a suicide bomber infiltrated the crowd and blew himself up. All told, 41 people were killed. 2 more suicide bombers using car bombs attacked joint Iraqi army and police patrols in the northern metropolis of Mosul, a predominantly Sunni city near the Syrian border, killing 7 people. 4 more people were killed in Mosul in separate attacks. The attacks in Taji and Mosul were the only suicide attacks among the 40 or so reported that day, a fact that suggests a shift in tactics by the AQL. I'm not sure what the AQL is, but all the other incidents involved bombs placed in cars or buildings and detonated remotely, or attacks by gunmen who engaged in combat with troops or police and then withdrew. In the most ambitious attacks, several carloads of men attacked Iraqi army facilities in Udaim, between Baghdad and the northern city of Kirkuk. They used rocket launchers and grenades, overran at least one of the outposts, killed 60 soldiers, and took an officer prisoner, then escaped. There were another 8 car bombs in Kirkuk and its environs, hitting police convoys and patrols and killing at least 9 people, with another 32 wounded. Monday's attacks were the most widespread of the year, affecting 6 of Iraq's 18 provinces and extending hour after hour from the far north to the far south of the country. Among the towns hit were, oh my goodness, a bunch of Iraqi towns that I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing, but here we go. Husseiniya, Tuz, Dujail, Balad, Bakuba, all north of the capital. Sadr City, the huge Shiite suburb on the eastern end of Baghdad, and Dawaniya, a large Shiite city in the south. After the bomb blast in Dawaniya, when a car exploded at a busy vegetable market. Oh, there you go. In every movie, you got to have the car scene, and you got to hit the vegetable cart. That's right. The car must go. Well, this story is not lacking that. We've got the bomb blast in Dawaniya. A car exploded at a busy vegetable market. And all the veggies everywhere. But, you know, not to make light of this, 5 people died, 32 wounded. Local residents denounced police and began smashing police cars before marching on government buildings. Boy, I tell you, that exploding vegetables that day really did a number, didn't they? Police opened fire on the crowd, killing 1 demonstrator and wounding dozens more. There were further attacks, July 26, killing at least 19 people, the majority of them policemen, as the Islamic fundamentalists continued to target security forces rather than civilians. 1 Iraqi army helicopter was forced down by hostile fire near Diyala, northeast of Baghdad, after it was called in to assist security forces attacked at a checkpoint near Hadid, in a rural part of Diyala province. Well, I'm Michael Wordsworth. We're heading to the top of the 6 o'clock hour. I'm not sure who's coming on next. I thought it was Ingrid's Inspirational Hour, but I could be wrong about that. We do have the big bike race occurring here tomorrow. Well, actually starting tonight and going all day tomorrow. Very exciting stuff. If you're trying to do some grocery shopping at the co-op, boy, it's kind of busy over there. They had a wonderful big banquet laid out there, and people are getting pretty excited about it. It's going to be a big event. We're going to have live in-the-field coverage of people at various points throughout the race, reporting back to us here in the studio. And then, of course, we got our speaker outside the video store now. It's going to be broadcasting to you all the race bike coverage events. Here's a biker now. I don't know if he's in the race, but he's in the race. He's in the race. Oh, he says he is the race. Which race is that, human or otherwise? So anyhow, here's another biker coming up. Just the bikes are piling up outside the door. What are you going to do? I mean, it is a bike race. Everybody's got their legs warmed up. Hope they're drinking water. Keep your electrolyte levels out there. Remember my bid on coconut water. Coconut water is an awesome hydrator. It's better than Gatorade and doesn't have the red dyes and sugar that kills you. All right, well, I'm Michael Wordsworth. I hope you enjoyed the show. We reported earlier, starting off with you're more likely to die from 62 times more likely to die from your doctor giving you the wrong medication than you are from homicidal maniacs. In any case, the news just never ends here, does it? All right, everybody take care. Look forward to the coverage of tomorrow's bike race, starting tonight, I guess. It's weird. It's a 24-hour bike race. It's going to span several time zones here. So, all right, people, thank you so much. Let me find my music to pull out of here. Here we go. All right, I am Michael Wordsworth. These have been Wordsworth Listening To, and thank you for listening. Good day.